I'm about to show you a massive revamp of an HVAC system in a new construction home. My wife and I are building a house, and our GC hired an HVAC company to come in and put in the ductwork, and after they were all done, we came and inspected the work, and it looked horrendous. It looked like a giant snake pit. So we decided to put a pause on the build and hire two old guys to come in, redesign parts of the system, and give it a massive upgrade. So here's what it looked like before. We have two furnaces. This is the main one down in the basement, and this is what it looked like. As you can see, all this flex duct is in a total knot. These are the main supply lines coming out of the furnace, feeding to many other supply lines. And we also discovered that there was a lot of excess flex duct that would not have been necessary if they used a main metal duct trunk line. Here is a preview of all the flex duct that we cut out, almost 200 linear feet. And then this is what the second furnace on the main floor looked like. Again, all the flex duct in knots, a lot of airflow compression through those main supply lines feeding in to the rest of the supply lines for the whole upstairs of the house. And don't get me started on the drop downs. When we showed up and discovered this is our pantry. There's a huge return duct, that big gray one, coming down 2 feet out of the corner, and then the other return flex duct running across the top of the pantry, which is not at all what we discussed with our builder. That type of design forces us to put in a 2 by 2 foot box, which would have eaten up a third of our pantry space. And of course, we got rid of it. This is what it looked like after our builder boxed it in. Our shelving space in our pantry is practically gone. And then here's what it looked like in the basement with another drop down, another 2 by 2 foot drop down, only because the way that flex duct was run, it was bent the wrong way at the ends, causing the framer to have to put in a 2 by 2 foot box. Again, not what we discussed. We discussed having like an 8 or 9 inch drop down in the basement, and you'll see how we changed it. And then you'll see here that there was another drop down in the mudroom because of these supply lines dropping below the ceiling. We had a family friend who's been in the business for decades come in and take a good look at everything, and he as well agreed that it looked bad. We would have been lucky to get good airflow all around everything, and there was a huge lack of using metal ductwork. What he said and another HVAC guy said, they both thought that it looked as if the HVAC system was installed in a crawl space. And even then, it wasn't following best practices. So we did a walk around with him and realized that we couldn't get the ideal because it would have had to been redesigned during the framing process, but there's a lot that could be done with the main trunk lines in order to give a lot better supply feeding into the rest of the house.
And then we're gonna run duct down here so far, pick up these first 3 or 4 on a bigger duct, then we'll shrink it down a little bit and pick up the rest of them. All of these can all be pulled down here.
Yep, okay. So
All that
we'll do
flex
that.
can all be cut down, but these things are all gonna go away. All this is going away. So you're gonna drag all these out and bring them down to where they come straight to here. This one's gonna come straight in here.
And then it's all straight into, that's
So
so
let's
much
see
more
how much-
logical.
Yeah, you'll have
Why didn't we do that in the first place?
19 by 23 and a half, I guess. That's what they're gonna come in. They're gonna come in a box of 5 foot joints. That's a great looking.
Because there's supposed to be a future tub in that corner. That can't even be there at all.
Well, we'll make sure it gets tied in somehow.
All of this, the supply going to the upstairs living room will just go straight through that square, straight to the main trunk line. That would be right here, going all the way across that wall.
Take all those out, pull those all out. So I'm gonna bring, because it's only 19 inches wide, I'm gonna bring this out 12 inches deep to begin with, okay? It'll be 12 inches deep to start with, and then what we'll do is I'll make a transition from 12 inches deep to 24 inches wide, okay? So then we're probably gonna run a joint, but once we go 24 to 8, then we're gonna throw an elbow in, 45.
And I'm building a house in southern Utah. We're from northern Utah, and I grew up on the East Coast, where using metal ductwork is the standard. But apparently in southern Utah, it's not. They go a little too crazy with the flex duct, so it was even hard for us to find enough sheet metal at the supply houses here. Okay, we got massive compression on this supply line right here. Look at that. So here's Here's the furnace on the main floor. We have the supply that comes up here that gets super crunched. I mean, that pipe is right there. That's like more than half of your pipe is being pushed in. And same right here. I mean, look at this. Look at this compression on that. It's almost completely, I mean, you're barely gonna have air squeezing out of there. So after we did a walkthrough and redesigned the system, we got to work. This is how much flex duct we cut out of just the basement. It's about 200 linear feet worth. Wasted. Okay, we've now removed the flex duct that was the return coming from the upstairs down into the unit that was causing the huge drop down to the pantry. So now, as you can see, there's a big hole in the side. We're going to patch that up. And then we're going to use a piece of metal duct that's going to be connected to the top that connects to flex duct that then goes directly into the top of the unit. So we won't have anything coming in the side of the unit. So as you can see, we've taken the whole front part of this duct off where all the supply lines were feeding into. And on the top of this box on the back is where we're going to be connecting the return that comes from the upstairs, and it'll go straight into that hole on top so that everything fits into the ceiling. So during the demo phase, we pulled down a bunch of flex duct, rerouted a lot of it. As you can see, it's all hanging down in the storage room. It was snaking all over the place. The goal here is to route the flex duct to shoot straight into a metal duct trunk line in the storage room, which you'll see soon. And then we got rid of that huge supply duct in the front of the downstairs unit. As you can see right here, this ugly monstrosity we got rid of completely and chucked it into the dumpster so that we could build a new, nicer looking and much better working main trunk line coming out of the unit, which you'll see shortly. Now we're connecting the return line from the second floor down into the main floor unit, where we have flex duct going into the top of the unit, and it connects to this rigid duct pipe on the second floor that goes into the return box. Much nicer than the original, where it had flex coming from the top all the way down into the pantry and into the side of the unit. Our new HVAC guy, who is a family friend, built this plenum that he installed to the top of the unit on the main floor furnace to replace that huge duct that we had ripped out that had all the flex duct snaking into it. But this one shoots up into the ceiling so we can connect the supply lines up into the ceiling rather than them all coming really low, taking up a bunch of space in the furnace room like it was before. Here is what it looks like after. There used to be flex duct running all throughout here in a giant knot, and I'm going to show you that now. Now, almost all the flex duct is up in the ceiling, except for that one pipe that drops down. And no drop down in the pantry. No drop down. We pushed that return up into the ceiling, so we finally have our pantry back. We patched up the hole that was right here. Pushed that return right through the top of the box. This pantry behind me has 9-foot ceilings. We would have only had 7-foot ceilings all the way around, losing a third of our shelving space with how they first ran the duct. Now, what used to run through right there is running through the garage. And we used to have a massive drop down right here in the mudroom. Now there's no drop down at all. They said it wouldn't be possible. They said, no, we can't do what you're wanting. You're gonna have to have a drop down in your pantry and in your mudroom and a huge 2-foot one in your basement. But now you've got, comes through a straight metal pipe, a big elbow, and then into the flex, and then right into the top of the return box right there. And now for the finished basement furnace. No flex duct whatsoever coming into this room. You have that plenum coming out of the furnace, and then it goes into a trunk line that stretches across the top of the storage room where all the supply lines feed into the top in the ceiling. So as you can see, the supply lines are shooting straight into the top from the main part of the basement and also from the storage room. There's only 2 ducts. It used to look like before, like there was 5 or 6 because of how it was snaking all over the place. And on the outside, we've got several supply lines shooting down and over into the top. And up here is where you can see how it's connecting to the top of the trunk line. We still need to shove that insulation in and get things taped up, but that's how it's connecting in through those elbows that are drilled in through a hole in the top. That helps give it a really nice clean look and also keep it all up in the ceiling. And then we used straps to help keep the flex duct level and prevent it from sagging.
It's on. It works. It works. Hear that?
Here's the basement unit fully hooked up and working beautifully. There's that plenum going into the trunk line that now disappears into a box on the other side of this furnace room. So there's the finished out box where that trunk line is hiding. And that's what it looks like now in the storage room. See, we were fine to have a drop down like that in the storage room, and in the end, it's only about 10 inches high. We were not okay to have that upstairs in our pantry or anywhere else. And here it is, all finished and up and running. You got your gas lines, drywall's been put in. You wouldn't even be able to put drywall on the ceiling with the previous version of this with all that flex duct coming down. Here's the basement return, which will be finished out eventually. And then there's the return coming from the upstairs that used to have the 2-foot drop down. It's now been a couple of months. The HVAC system has been finished and turned on, and we have moved into our house. And even though we spent $3,000 and a whole week's worth of our time, it was well worth it because every single room has airflow and it's really well balanced. And if we had done nothing, there would have been entire rooms with no air coming through the vents. So even though it worked out in the end and we were able to save our HVAC system, it still could have been better and much more perfect if it had been done right from the get-go. We had the architect specifically design 18-inch trusses and with boxes in the middle of them, a big box opening, so that metal ductwork trunk lines can be run through that box on each level of the house. And then the ductwork can easily just run straight into that instead of spiraling all the way to the unit like you had seen. Of course, that wasn't done. The plumber actually got into the house first, put all of his main plumbing lines through those boxes that the HVAC system was supposed to go. But by that point it was already too late because in order to install those that square duct, it has to be installed while the house is getting framed. Luckily, we had a family friend who had been in the HVAC industry for decades, who was a true craftsman, who was able to come in and help come up with a solution for how to create a much more ideal system, even though it wasn't perfect, with what we had. We didn't have the ability or the budget to be able to completely rip it apart and start over. One of the biggest lessons learned is make sure you have a mechanical plan done before you start building your house. Our builder didn't think it was necessary. It does cost a little bit extra money, but it's well worth it in the end so that you know that you're gonna get the system that you need, and you have the space for the type of system that you need for HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, and you're not making it up on the spot. And a lot of people will think, hey, it doesn't matter what it looks like because it's all gonna be covered up. But it does matter, because a true craftsman would care how their HVAC looks, because they know that if it looks better, it also likely works better. And you saw the video, it wasn't just a cosmetic issue. The way that things were run with 200 extra feet, that's 200 extra feet that the air in our house would have had to travel to get to the vents. That's a ton of air pressure that gets lost along the way. So if you're a contractor in the construction industry, don't be like the guy that originally installed our HVAC system. Have some pride in your work, to have the level of competency that the guy had that we brought in, who redesigned all those main lines so that we could actually have an HVAC system that works. Care to do a good job and care to make it look good, and you're gonna stand out and you're gonna win the bigger projects.